Hey there, and welcome to Brewday POV. First of all, a warning: if you suffer from vertigo or motion sickness, you might want to skip this one. First off, we're just running the water into the mash tun. So we're just pre-warming the mash tun, making sure everything's closed, and we'll get the temperature up. We do mix our temperature hot and cold to hit at a specific temperature. Rakes are going. There's Alex, our head brewer. Hi, Alex. Yeah, he's not noticing. He's measuring out salts. So basically, when you're brewing, you're adding calcium chloride, calcium sulfate in different ratios to mimic different water profiles. So depending on the beer we're brewing, we may go chloride heavy or we may go sulfate heavy. One will, in fact, help in hot side in terms of conversion, starch to sugar. The other helps in terms of hop expression. So places that use RO water or reverse osmosis, where they've removed absolutely everything, need to add a lot more salts. We're very fortunate. Midland water is really pretty hard, and that hardness actually helps us. So we don't filter that out, although we do run multiple filters. So here we're mashing in. This involves bags of grain being run up the brew deck, and then that's me. And then Alex monitors how fast he's pouring it in based on the water coming in. There is a hydrator function on our brew house, but because of our ceiling height being a little bit lower than what we had originally spec'd, the auger doesn't reach it, and we prefer just to pour it in. It gives you a really good control, and the amount of turns, I so apologize for this, but when you go time lapse on a point of view camera, you do get to see how many steps you get in very quickly. So this particular beer is all Alberta grain. This is our Canadian light lager we are brewing on this day. And the To Thee is the Canadian sort of premium Pilsner malt. When we're doing German pills or Czech pills, we use grains that are specific to those areas. So we try to make sure that we're very true and authentic to the beer style that we're brewing. You'll see me constantly going over, checking the mash tun temperature, adjusting the flow of the cold mixer, and that's so we can keep it right on the number. So the priority number for brewing most beers is somewhere between 62 and 68 degrees for most of the brews that we do. I'm right now just opening up a fresh bottle of lactic acid. We use that to balance our pH. So beer has to be slightly acidic, just like most drinks that you have are slightly acidic, pop or anything. And we have a specific number we like to reach depending on the style of beer. So we will adjust that. We measure it with a Milwaukee pH meter and check our temperature of our mash tun, verify it with that, and then we'll adjust the acid accordingly. That's something that I learned through Adam from Adam Makes Beer. Shout out to Adam, who was a big inspiration and a help when I was getting started. I used to watch his videos, and trust me, none of them made me feel quite as dizzy as this one. But the process was very much drilled into me to monitor that pH and make sure that you are adding the adequate amount of acid. There are formulas that we learned in brew school for adjusting acids, and you do want to make sure that you don't over adjust. Too low a pH is not good. By the way, brewers are also smokers, barbecuers in our shop because we run a lot of our meats in our sandwiches and in our flatbreads are smoked. We also do a smoked brew mix. There's our chillers. The chillers drive the cold to these fermenters, and that's the cold side of the brewery. So today, while we're brewing, we're working mainly hot side. Right now I'm strapping down the top of the hop back. The hop back is a filtering system, but also a flavor adding attachment. So it's a vessel that can hold hops if you're putting them in the transfer window between hot side and cold side. They can also take like lemon zest or orange zest if we're adding that to a beer. And it's a very handy way of having just a secondary filter for anything that might come through. So right now I'm opening the door on the mash tun because we've drained the water out of it. All of the liquid now has moved to the boil kettle, and it's going to boil for about 75 minutes. And this is my glory job. I get to rake out the mash tun. Our head brewer, Alex, faithfully allows me to do this. Occasionally he'll jump in, but I don't mind. I like to see how the grain bed has laid at the end of the mash. Make sure that there were no dough balls, which are clumps of grain which didn't get fully saturated with water, which means that they would have not converted. Fortunately, our rake system does a great job of keeping this very homogeneous, so we don't get dough balls. I've actually never seen one in this 78 or 79 brews that we've done on this brew kit. So we fill these buckets, and this spent grain will go to our friends Paul and Amy Beauchamp's farm, and they will feed it to their cows and or any other animals that want to eat it. At this point, we've stripped the sugar out of it, and that means that it's a very good low-calorie, high-fiber addition to their diet. It's very, very healthy for them. And because of the relationship and how small of a community we are, we actually obviously know our farmers, but they're also very, very good to get here very quickly after mash out. They like to get it to their animals as fresh as possible. If you let spent grain sit, it will go off. It doesn't ferment per se. It's not producing any alcohol. We're not doing any cow tipping or anything like that. But it does start to smell up the shop. So we get it outside usually within a couple of hours of raking out. The mash holds about, in this case, I think we were about 400 kilos of grain. So when it comes out, it's fairly moist, so it's probably closer to 500 kilos. And we have 5 buckets, so we put about 100 kilos per bucket. And not all of our beers use that big of a grain bill. It depends on the beer. This is actually a light beer, so this will end up being about 4.2% alcohol. And the way we ensure that is we'll measure, once we are on our pre-boil, we'll take a sample out of the boil kettle before it starts boiling, and we'll measure how much sugar concentration there is in the wort, which is what the sweet water is called at this point. That will give us a ability to calculate what the finished alcohol by volume will be. The other neat thing is that we can adjust that if we've made too much sugar or we've been too efficient, is what we call it in the brew house. Then what we'll do is we'll just push more water through the grain. Right now, this is towards the end of the boil. I'm just adding what's called whirlfloc. This is a natural protein clumper, I guess you'd call it. It attracts and gets the proteins that are still in solution to clump together. And at this point, we're whirlpooling the wort. So that means that we're pushing the pump through and making the whole vessel spin. Not the vessel, the contents. So all the liquid, like just when you used to make a whirlpool in a sink and that sort of thing. That's basically it for the brew day. We would, after this, transfer the hot liquid through a reverse flow chiller and put that into our fermentation vessel. We add the yeast once we're about halfway full, and then let the yeast do its job. The yeast will eat all of the sugar that we produced for it and produce alcohol and CO2. In the case of this beer, Canadian Light Lager, we're going to capture that CO2 and naturally carbonate the beer. And the numbers came out perfect, so we ended up with what's projected to be a 4.2% light lager right on, which is awesome. You always want to be able to hit your numbers in the brew house. It makes for a very satisfying day. That's it for Brew Day. Thank you. We'll see you soon. Don't forget to like and subscribe.